How far back do you want me to go? Before we started and our journey to LearningRx, I think would be good.
I think so.
Because I think that was probably a pivotal point for us also, you know, that interview, the initial interview that we had with you.
Yeah, I feel like the assessment is so helpful for breaking it down in a way that's like, oh, this makes so much sense.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
I can't remember when we went to your website first, because do this really quickly, okay?
Yeah.
And I know that we had to select someone to talk with, maybe like a trainer. I think that was just kind of...
Oh, did you book the assessment online? Okay.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
And then we were contacted by you, correct?
Yeah. And how did you hear about it again?
I did a search.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
I was just searching.
Okay.
And somehow it came up.
Yeah, okay.
So, I mean, it was totally rando.
God.
But I mean, which is great. Yeah, literally, you know. But I can still make that, you know, like we were searching and looking for places. And it came up. Yeah. Which is really cool because I didn't even actually know what I was searching for.
Yeah.
Just help.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That is cool. I think from hearing it from your perspective is there's so many families in that exact spot.
Yeah.
So like thinking about, you know, here's what was going on. I didn't know. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know. Do you remember what you were searching?
Yeah, I was actually searching for help with kids who struggle with dyslexia.
Yeah.
Or, you know, who, you know, need some kind of, you know, help, additional help with dyslexia or reading or whatever it might be. Yeah. And ADHD, that was big too. So I know that those were kind of like key plug words for us at that time because we didn't have much else to go off of. Yeah. Okay, so we can start that way.
Yeah.
So do you want to ask me the question, or do you want me to just kind of like dive right into it?
I'm trying to think of how he would do it. Yeah, probably I'll ask a question. So, so if you think back to what you were experiencing whenever you started like noticing you might need some support, like what did that look like for you?
So we realized that when Titus even was around 2 that there was some kind of speech delay, you know, that his verbal maturation wasn't happening, and we realized, okay, this is off balance, and this just isn't something that he will grow out of, like we'd already been told by a pediatrician. And so we did the Babies Can't Wait program with Georgia and the state of Georgia, and that went okay, but I honestly left even from that disappointed and feeling a little frustrated, and honestly we were actually kind of angry. Yeah. And I mean, that program is free, and it's not anything against the, you know, the ladies who came out to help him, but it was just clear even at that point, you know, even as young as he was, that there were things with Titus that needed very specific qualification, like somebody who was really certified to address something very specific with him. And of course, even at that time, we didn't have the language for that. We didn't know what exactly was going on with him. Now, you know, after that, a few years after that, he did start to speak better, and, you know, his delay, you know, decreased. However, we were still seeing issues with his speech, where he wasn't enunciating well. There were certain words that we had to continue to repeat to him, and even as we were repeating and doing those things slowly, he still wasn't able to formulate the words very well, or even just with his auditory processing, we were realizing that there was something that wasn't happening, you know, that transpiring when we would speak to him, or when we would give him directions like, hey, can you do this for us, or can you do that? And it was, things weren't going through the right way, which is also difficult as a parent. So we went and we had, you know, an auditory test done with him, and we even took him to a dentist and had his, you know, lips and his tongue checked for, you know, for any ties, because that was the next thing we were told. Oh, he's probably got a tongue and a lip tie, so you need to get those taken care of, and it'll fix everything. We're like, okay. Well, his testing for his auditory, you know, came back perfect. We're like, okay, so he doesn't have a hearing issue. And then when we took him to the dentist was he had so much integrity, and I appreciate it, because he could have made money off of us, you know, but he said, no, this is not the issue. I mean, he said, if he were my son, I would not clip either. He said, because that's not what's causing any
Wow.
speech issue with him.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, which is, great
Yeah,
on the one
but
hand, but
then-
then on the other hand, you have the big question of, well, then what
Now
the heck
what?
is going on? What's going on with our son? And so shortly thereafter, an older woman at our church, we began talking with her, and she has done similar training with young kids, especially at a private school that's in our area, with just brain development, and even kids who are on the spectrum, kids with ADHD, and so she said, hey, let me just do a free assessment with him. And we're like, okay, great. So she did an assessment with T, and she was like, yeah, there's definitely some indiscrepancies here, of course, with ADHD, but also with just his ability to, read what's on the page and, to remember it, to hear what I'm saying correct. Like when I'm saying the word ape, it's like some things are not, he's not hearing those sounds processed the right way, or he's having a harder time, even with the consonants or the vowels, understanding that as it's going in. And
Even though it's not his volume hearing.
Right. And so we were like, well, what in the world what is this? What is up with that? And so she was as helpful as she could be. And so we were grateful for that also. And she gave us a list of, different specialists that she knew of for different things, and one of them was dietary, and which we knew we needed to address also with him. But we were still like, man, this just doesn't seem... The specialist that she provided still, after we, considered it together, my husband and I, and, for us, we prayed about it, and we're like, man, this is just, these people don't seem like our answer. So at that point, my husband was kind of like, I need you to take it. And I was like, man, that's okay. And I was getting more and more frustrated and thinking, okay, this can't be the end of the rope. I mean, I know that there has to be someone, some kind of course or, like place that can actually help us achieve our goals and help give us the language for what's going on with our son and help him and meet his needs. And so one day I was just on the computer, and I was literally, it's like, you're on the Google and there's just like the blinking cursor and you're like, oh my gosh, okay. And so I just started typing in keywords, like help with, kids who have ADHD, help with kids who, have symptoms of dyslexia. And I mean, even then, I didn't really understand dyslexia. And that's not something that you really hear. And even when you do, I mean, it's very almost ambiguous and like this really arbitrary term, I think, And so I'm like, I don't even really know what dyslexia is, but this is what, this lady said. And so, okay, I'm going to type this in. And literally LearningRx was one of the first, places that popped up in the search for us. And I was like, okay, what's this about? So I click on it, and I'm like reading all the things that, that you guys address. And I was like, this is what our son needs. I mean, they're talking about how they can help, meet our son in the place that he's at with his ADHD and doing it without medication, which is huge. Like that, as for us as parents, that's, we wanted to take that route, to not have to use medication for our then 7-year-old son. And, here they are also talking about how that they can help students with, their reading and even their math and their composition and when someone is speaking to them and they're hearing, and it's like how they can comprehend and they can remember, because we even, realized with Titus that he wasn't remembering even just simple things, even just remembering his alphabet or remembering the days of the week or remembering when we would give him even just 2-step kind of responsibilities or, tasks like, hey, in the morning you need to wake up and brush your teeth and then go potty or something. It's like he He just didn't realize that.
And what you're describing are the core cognitive skills that affect the learning process. So we have to have attention skills, we have to have memory, we have to have processing speed, auditory processing, visual processing, and when those are working well together, that's what unlocks the process of learning. And unfortunately, just not a lot of things work right there. And that's where we specialize. And so without even knowing that language, I love hearing you think through that, because it's not common knowledge. Oh, these are the core cognitive skills that affect learning. You know, so it's like, how do I even know that or look for that? And so I love that you found us in a really kind of organic way.
Yes.
And then it clicked immediately, like, this is it.
Yeah, this is it. And it was perfect, you know, and so then there was that moment, it's like the epiphany, like, oh man, this is it. This is, like you said, this is it. This is what our son needs. I really felt so confident even before, you know, speaking with any of you. And, you know, so then I was showing it to my husband, and he was like, okay, well, he's a little bit more skeptical than I, you know, I just tend to try to be a bit more optimistic in general. But I think at that point too, I was so desperate for help. Because it's not easy, especially when you're homeschooling and you see your child losing self-confidence and questioning self-worth, even at such a young age. It shouldn't be that way. And so, you know, something inside of your heart, you know, as a mom and even just as a parent, it's like, man, I'm desperate for help. And so it really was in that desperation that I was like, this is it, and this has got to be it. I mean, it has to work. And so we agreed to reach out. And so, you know, we put in to be able to speak with, which we now know you, Michelle, as the director here at LearningRx. And I know the initial interview with you was a true answer to all of that desperation and longing and need inside of us. And again, giving us the language that we didn't have. And even before starting here with Titus, just in that initial interview with you, you were already able to not only answer our questions, but affirm and confirm to us that this is the place that Titus needs to be. And to, I really would say, comfort us and say, hey, you know what, like, you're not alone in this, and you know, this isn't a road that you have to walk by yourself, and there are others. And the good news is, what I loved too is the statistic of you know, where students start when they come here and then where they end up. And for me, again, being more optimistic, I looked at it and I was like, holy smokes, this is phenomenal. Like, yes, this is what I want my son to be. Because, you know, just like you're excited. And my husband was like, well, that's a really high statistic rate, you know, like the exchange rate, you know. He's like, oh my goodness, you know, they start here, and then how in the world did they get...
Too good to be true.
Kind of
it
thing.
feels that way.
And so again, we were both but we were still excited and willing to try, because we didn't have any other option, you know. And I know that also in that initial interview with you, my husband, you could tell he was still very skeptical and kind of like, oh, okay, you know, especially when you start looking at the cost, the financial cost, and commitment of that, and even the intensity of the training in that, you know, because when you start to hear kind of the training, you know, program and what that will look like, and it is different for each child, I know, but for our child, for example, how rigorous it was going to be for him, even though he's only here 3 days a week for 90 minutes. I mean, it's very intensive. And, you know, I was trying very hard in those early stages to remind myself that Titus has a lot of potential, and he really is a creative, curious, bright child. We just haven't fully seen that yet because of like what you've described. He wasn't aware of his potential yet, and also there were things like the foundation wasn't laid for him yet to be able, you know, for that part of him to really come through and to shine through like we knew it could. And so having to take a step back and say, okay, yes, this is going to be intensive, and yes, it is a big you know, financial kind of like commitment, but if really the statistics are true, then it's so worth it. All of the investment, and knowing that Titus will be able to persevere and he will be able to do this himself and not, question whether or not he could.
Yeah.
But saying, you know what, actually, my son, he let's give him a shot.
Yeah.
Why not let him try?
Well, and I think about all of the things that we spend money on for our kids. I mean, I have kids, so from braces and orthodontics to sports, and it's kind of like, you do choose where you spend your money for kids. You're going to.
Right.
But to me, there's nothing more important than getting their brain to be fully functioning for them.
Right.
It's kind of like if you found out that your child had, a disease or disorder, would you treat it or would you not?
Right, exactly. Would you just let it go? Exactly.
And so having kids myself, I just feel like there isn't anything more valuable.
That's exactly
right.
And
it's not like it is a kind of get what you pay for situation.
Yes.
It is the top level service and quality that could be possible, because we're not financially motivated. It's just the cost of having this.
Exactly.
And so I do like to sort of think about, because it is something, and I just know going through things with my kids, I'm like, what are we going to spend money on for them?
Yes. And it was no question for us, honestly, too. Once my husband and I, after we met with you and we had been given, the breakdown of payment, but also just the breakdown of what, training might potentially look like for Titus, and, sitting down, that's kind of where we were at also. It's like, what? It's going to be so worth the investment because it is an investment.
Yeah.
It's not just, we're throwing money away.
Yeah.
This is setting Titus up for a future that is bright and that will help him excel, that will give him skills that he can continue to use, all throughout his life. And it's like, man, if we can do this now, amazing, because it's going to help him greatly in the long run, to where we don't have to supplement with medication. We don't have to, jump all these other hurdles and hoops and, try to go to 9 different specialists, that ultimately may not even address what you're addressing here. And so then really, ultimately, we would be throwing away more money in the long run.
Right. So, and I see that happen all the time, and it's so sad because I'll have, someone who's been tutoring for 10 years.
Yeah.
Truthfully.
Yeah.
I have a student who just started with us that's 16, and and we don't have to keep this video, but he came here when he was 8, and at the time they just couldn't do it. So he went through all, special needs things and tutoring and specialists, and then by the time he was 16, Mom was like, okay, I have the money, and this is the thing we have to do.
Wow.
All those years later, and it's like, you think about what you potentially could have saved, but also you do what you got to do. I'm not judging or knocking anybody. I believe everything is in its perfect time. But this student is thriving right now, and he's getting ready for college, and it's like different time. It's very cool. But maybe if you want to, we can kind of talk about too, like when you started to notice, like, because I feel like it was very early on when we were doing check-ins and you were like, almost affirmed, okay, we did make the right decision. Because it's hard in the beginning, like, is this the right decision? Do we need to make this leap? Ultimately, we decide, yes, it's worth it. We got to try it. We have to. And then when were you like, oh, whew. Thank goodness.
Thank goodness we were right. It honestly probably wasn't even, and I know this sounds a bit wild, but it was maybe 3 weeks in to, his training, that we were starting to see a different child at home. And in multiple ways, not just with his ability to sit with us, at a table, and not even just doing schoolwork, but just being able to sit even at the dinner table, and the willingness to sit at the dinner table with us, and it not be chaotic, it not be, this gambling game of whether or not like we're going to be able to enjoy a family meal together. And also just with him being able to be more willing to again sit with us and do his schoolwork, to being able to pay attention to even like what we're asking of him, whether it be his schoolwork, whether it be just basic care needs, like, hey buddy, can you go brush your teeth? You know, could you get your clothes for school? Would you put those on? Can you take a shower? You know, those were things that I know for maybe many families it's just kind of easy and they don't think about it, but for those with kids who do have, you know, places in their brain that aren't developed as they should be, you know, those parents, they understand the difficulties that come with trying to get a child to stay on task or, you know, to manage emotional behavior and how to self-regulate or have self-control or even walk through steps of, you know, like, okay, I'm experiencing this emotion, now what do I do with it? Or, you know, I have been given these tasks, how do I process those? And then how do I not only process, but how do I tackle them, you know, and get them done. And do it well and without having to feel overwhelmed or breaking it down, because Titus was in that place when we first got here. But really one of the biggest, I think, moments for me in the beginning and for my husband was, you know, when you did the first assessment with him here, or Jennifer, you know, did that first assessment with him, and he was able to really only like sit at the table with her. It was like 2 seconds
it
or
was
something.
seconds.
It was seconds for him to be able to sit and focus. And then even within, you know, that first month when you did another assessment with him, I mean, it was leaps and bounds. I was
minutes.
Yes, I was blown away. I said, I mean, we were really like, this is a different child. And I just remember one morning bringing him here, you know, and him coming in, and it was after one of the first assessments that we, you know, had done with our checkup with him, and I just cried. I was like, I can't believe that this is it, and that our son is not just like developing in the way that he should be, but I mean, he's excelling already so quickly. I mean, that wasn't an expectation in mine, because I don't know if I didn't want to have the expectation and it not be met. Or kind of like my husband, that's too good to be true, like no way. But then actually seeing the reality of how quickly the change happens, you know, even within the first month. And then, you know, you go a little bit further and you're like, whoa, you know, a few months pass and you're like, this is really miraculous and incredible, you know, for me on my end. But I know on your end, you're like, well, not really miraculous. It's just, you know, addressing things in the brain that need to be addressed.
Addressing the right issue is miraculous. It is. It feels that way. Yeah, you're right. It's awesome.
It's been so cool for us to see where he was at in August, and then here we are, you know, in March, and we have a child who went from not being able to read, not being able to write, and not writing his letters the correct way. You know, with dyslexia, he was getting things flipped and moved around, and who had no self-confidence or self-worth, you know, really struggling with that, who was having issues with ADHD, and now here we have a child who is reading, and he's more confident in his reading, he's totally confident in himself, who his speech is not only is his vocabulary growing and he feels more confident in using a broader vocabulary, but he's, you know, engaging in better conversations with even adults and sitting and having conversations with adults, whereas before he would totally avoid it. You know,
and just even staying focused, right,
and
in conversations,
and being present in those conversations, and he's engaged and engaged in his, you know, schoolwork. He's curious about other things, you know, not just toys. You know, that was kind of, I understand too, for him, a default of like, he's trying to kind of distance himself from anything that was learning because he wasn't confident.
That's right.
And seeing a child now who can wake up in the morning and, you know, follow directions and stay on task and not have to be reminded constantly of what needs to be done, and being more apt to be independent and really taking ownership of his own independence and wanting to be independent, whereas before he was so self-reliant, on mom or dad, and needing one of us to be present during every task or every single part of his schoolwork, to where it was like very straining for us as parents, at the age that he's at. It's just a different child. He's a different child.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I'm just so excited for him, and I know this is one of those things, like you say to your kids, you'll thank me one day,
Yes,
that
really,
he will
truly.
look back on, and he will remember this as a huge time of growth for him.
Yeah.
So it's awesome.
Yeah. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. Okay.
Feel good?
That was so good.
Feel good about that? Okay, good.
Aaron's going to love
He's
that
going to be great. Well, he already knew.
Yeah.
He already knew.
I think it would be cool to have Titus talk about it a little bit.
I think so too. That's what I was
Don't
wondering.
you? I wonder if he would.
I would love for him to be able to do that also.
Because I'm actually thinking, we have our coming up. So we have a convention in July or we have a convention in Colorado every July.
Cool.
And so for LearningRx, and we submit local stories for our student of the year. And Jennifer has nominated Titus. And so I want to we haven't found out yet what we need to do, but I might record that and send that into them too for a student of the year.
That would be so awesome.
Because he has had a dramatic transformation from day one.
I mean, really. Yeah. I mean, it's like, it is, and that's what I hope encourages people. And I'm not trying to, but really, I hope that even with Titus's story, that parents would be so encouraged to say, because at some point too, and you hate to say it as a parent, because my goodness, you love your kids, but part of me, if I'm being honest, was like, man, is he a hopeless case? Yeah. Is there even actually any hope for my child to change or to be different? Because when you even think about having children, and then when you're in the process and you're pregnant, and even when they're babies, and you just kind of have these almost like fantasies or these desires of, I hope my child is like this, or I hope they do that. And, some of them are okay, your own kind of self-projection. In a way. But then, you do have high aspirations, that the intentions are good and well for your kids.
Yeah.
And then when you see roadblocks, especially when those roadblocks, you can't read the sign on the roadblock because you don't even know what that means, or you don't know what it is, and you don't know how to get around it or move it or what to do with it, and there's no one there around you to help give you any kind of signal or read it for you. So you're like, oh my goodness, what do we do about this? And then when you finally get to that place of being able to find the help that you need, and to say, you know what, my child isn't a hopeless case, and he doesn't have to remain this way. And that is some of the best news I think that we have ever received since we had Titus. Okay, well, there is this diagnosis, but it's not forever, which is what we were only hearing before we got here. That this is kind of a permanent thing that's going to stay with him the rest of his life.
That's just, he's stuck with that brain.
He's stuck with the ADHD. He's stuck with the auditory processing kind of issues. He's stuck with the dyslexia, and we're just like, what? How can this? It can't be that way. It can't. I just know it can't be. And then getting here, and you're like, thank goodness. No, it is not that way.
Yep.
It's really revolutionary.
Yeah, it is. It's
revolutionary. Yeah,
it is. I feel all the time like we're on the beginning of, it's. I don't know. I think about different skills and discoveries that at the beginning they just sound crazy and insane, and then they're just normal part of life, and that's what neuroplasticity is all about. 15 years ago, no one knew that word, and it looked at me like I had two heads all the time, but it took story after story, experience after experience like this, and people sharing it, and people, hearing from their friends and then experiencing it themselves, and I mean, that's how it spreads, and that's where I feel like I'm a part of it, kind of igniting a movement about how we reach our full potential with learning. And it's incredible. It fuels me every day.
Yeah. Well, now we're becoming more and more passionate about it also. So.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I'm excited to look up more about Israel and BrainRx, because it really, it's BrainRx is spreading like wildfire around the world.
I love it.
In the last probably 5 years, it's expanded from 20 to over 200 locations.
Wow.
So it's really catching on internationally, which means, you know how things are in the States.
Yeah.
Like we've been here longer.
Yeah.
It started here.
Right.
But it's quick to catch there.
Which I love, and I really am telling you, I think that it would be such a perfect fit, and it's one of those things that, is needed all around the world, but especially, just because of the state that Israel is in as a nation, and because there's so much diversity there, and man, it really is just the need is going to continue to increase because of the numbers that increase from the war. And just even thinking about the young men and even women, because they have to go in at 18 and commit to 2 years, at least, that come back, after being in the war. There is trauma that's there, but also, even at that age, their brains are still developing. And then to be hit with, trauma and having to also consider and work through that whole, I should be at this age not being thrown into war, but being able to either go to university or, starting a career or, just, things that we in the States take for granted and we don't consider and think about. But even for the children over there, just because we've gotten to meet several and their reality every day is, or every other day or something like that, going to a bomb shelter. For when we were there, we only had to go once, which I was totally surprised that we only had to go one time to a bomb shelter.
Wow.
But for them, that's that is the reality they live in, and depending on where you are in the nation, and then also where the bombs are coming from, or missiles or whatever, you have in some places 7 seconds.
Wow.
If you're close to the northern border,
oh my gosh,
Lebanon, less than 7 seconds sometimes.
Wow.
Or closer to Gaza, or Syria. It's just depending where you are is the amount of seconds. In some places the max is 2 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
But that's the max. So it's just like you have to go quick. And these kids, you think about the effect it has on their brains, but not only that, but the disruption that it causes with their learning.
Yeah.
And then they were out, for a long period of time with COVID, just like everyone, but then also being out for a long time because of the war and having to be at home, which is hard because I know here it's hard and we've seen already a few statistics that have come out, but then you throw war in the middle of that.
Oh my gosh.
And with their parents being also in this place of fragmentation.
Education's on the back burner. It has to be.
On the back burner.
Yep.
And you're just like, oh my goodness, these kids need help. They need help. So if there's also a way that I can kind of, work with you in that, and us, linking up with connections that I've already made over there.
Yeah.
And it would be really cool to even see, because CB in Israel, like I said, is doing phenomenal things over there, and they're making a lot of investments, even potentially seeing what they would say about taking on, BrainRx in Israel.
Yeah, yes.
Which would be phenomenal.
I'm like, I think you need to have a LearningRx center, Sydney. I'm serious.
I know, and I've been picking my brain because we ended up running into some trafficking stuff over there, and since I've gotten back, I've just been when I've had time, which I probably really should be sleeping, but I'm like, okay. And I'm looking up statistics and trying to find NGOs in the nation of, with sex trafficking and labor trafficking, and really everything over there has fallen significantly behind with regards to either education, therapy of all kinds, and even with trafficking, whether it be labor or sex, because of the war. Because they were hit with Corona, and then immediately, a year after that, the war started. And so many things have fallen by the wayside. and you're like, they just, I mean, I don't know, there are other places that also need help, but for me, it's there, you know.
Heart, yeah.
Yeah, my heart is there, and, you know, being there, and you're like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
the need is massive. So I'm even like shamelessly plugging my brother. I'm like, hey, because he's a therapist.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm like, hey, do you have any interest to going to Israel to work? Be totally cool. And he's like, wait a second, didn't you just tell me you were in a bomb shelter yesterday? I'm like, dude.
Yeah.
But there are people who are moving there because, and which is so, gives me a lot of hope and excitement, because I randomly met a guy. This is so funny. We were leaving Jerusalem, and we had just stopped at the Garden Tomb, and I'm like walking to walk out, and there's a young man sitting there, and he's painting with watercolor, which is like my favorite medium. And I don't know why, I just started crying, just crying.
You're just moved.
Like, yeah, I was just bawling. And so I go up to him, and I'm like, I know this is going to be so weird, but can I take your photo? And he's like, of course. He was so kind.
Aww.
So I take his photo, and then we kind of start talking, and turns out that he moved to Israel 6 months ago during war from Brazil, and he started just volunteering until he got placement with a company full-time, but he works with children on the spectrum.
Yeah.
And who, you know, just have like issues with ADHD, all these things. And I was like, are you kidding me? And then I started crying even more. So I know he's like, what is this lady? What's happening? But then just getting to share with him, even for a moment, about, you know, why that really touched my heart, and getting to encourage him. And I was like, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. And I want you to know it's not unseen, you know, because I feel like maybe many people who work in these fields, they feel like they're unseen, or, you know, the work is unseen because it's not given enough credit. It's not, you know, there's not as much yet exposure and realization about what's being done in these kind of fields with kids. And it's not for everyone, you know, to work in that field. And I was acknowledging that with him too. I'm like, I can't commend you enough, because it takes gifted, talented people who also have so much love and patience to work, and gentleness to work with children who, you know, really, really need it. Yeah. And I was just like, thanks.
This is a total side note. I told you about the Soul to Story podcast, which is really good. Still, keep that on your list. But have you heard of the telepathy tapes?
No. Oh no, are they
Sydney.
so good?
It is mind blowing.
No way.
It's about basically non-speaking autistic people who have telepathy, and it's proven again and again and again and again, and it's mind-blowing. It's like, you've heard of savant skills.
Yes.
Like, you can, you know, and there's these non-speaking individuals who, once they learn how to communicate through a device, you find out they know 20 languages. They connect with other non-speaking people. Wow. Like, mentally all over the world. It's insane.
Wow. And I believe it, though. I mean, too. I really do believe it, because you think,
I do too.
I mean, even, I don't know, this is silly, but there's something that encouraged me for quite a long time before even coming here, was, you know, realizing that I think it was Einstein who, you know, was dyslexic. And they would say on the spectrum. And he didn't learn to read until he was like 8 or something like that. And you're like, wow. Yeah. But that dude is a genius. Yeah. You know?
The reason I love it is because it's like, even non-speaking individuals, they actually don't understand how people can be connected to a body. They're like
out there. Yeah,
they're like beyond body.
It's
so
amazing.
That's why they can't control their body movements.
Wow.
And you help them by like touching them, their body. And so that's why they have sensory like sensitivities, and it's amazing. But you know, I just think about the gifts that go unnoticed, and I see this constantly. Kids who have been in an IEP and special ed programs for years and years, and they're starting to get where they don't even have to read anymore. You'll read the work to them. They don't have to write anymore. You'll write for them, and you're accommodating to the point of going way below their level. I mean, one of the kids that I like got connected with recently just basically was in, especially kids on the spectrum, they're expected to not be able to do anything.
Right, exactly.
So the expectations go down here, and guess what they do? They go right here.
Yeah.
So it's not until you start raising those expectations and saying, come here, come along, it's fun over here, let's try this.
Yeah.
And you know what? We can mess up a million times, but when we do it a million times, we're going to get it.
Yeah,
Right. And so, I mean, it's really cool.
But I love that. I feel like maybe that should be something we talk about too in the next one, is talking about, even because there are probably going to be many parents who listen to this and their kids are in maybe a public or even private school with an IEP. And, we even have my sister-in-law is one of those who works with children who are on the spectrum. And, she's walked with us many times over an IEP and like how we needed to get one for him, and how even if he's homeschooled that he can still have access to public help through the school system in our county to work with dyslexia or speech. And while that's great, we just realized again what you're saying, but they set the bar here, and I don't want it to be this roundabout to where he then learns another way to not have to do something, or they're trying to tell him something that actually doesn't address the real, issue, and then he just either becomes lazy, complacent, or has that mentality of, oh well, here's someone else saying I can't, so I won't.
Yep.
And that's not the mindset.
I've heard that phrase, like, if they can't, they won't, but if they can, they will. And so when you think they're just not doing something, it's like maybe they can't, and we got to get that can't to can. We got to show them how to do that, because they will if they will. And that's where a lot of people look at behaviors and they'll say, and I have a lot of skeptical dads. I just do. I meet with families and mom's like, I know there's something in there, and the dad's like, he just needs to try harder. I just hear that all the time, and it's like, if he can, he will.
Right. Yeah, he will.
If any kid. Right. If they can, they will. And so, you've got to get to that can.
That's right. Yeah.
And if you can't do something, that's fine. We can't do it yet because we haven't practiced.
Right, exactly. But we
can't do everything.
But we will get there.
You got to get there.
But you'll get there.
Yeah.
I think that's.
And you got to be around people and work with people who know how to help you get there. And that's the hard part,
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Which is so encouraging because, my dad, and I didn't know this until recently, which is wild. And that just shows you even in previous generations and just even the past few decades, the not only the lack of information and knowledge about, like, even for example dyslexia and ADHD, but just the stigmatization that came along with that. Maybe as a recourse of it, because my dad, I didn't realize he has dyslexia. And a form of dysgraphia. I didn't know that until Titus. We started realizing that with T-Man. And of course we knew my dad had ADHD. Okay. But my dad then started to kind of open up and share with us how even when he was a kid, how he would get severely punished by his dad and say, well, you're not trying hard enough at school, and get beaten, because of his report card. And it's heartbreaking.
So sad.
It's heartbreaking, and to know that, even in schools now that there, or even parents, and again, you get to a place as a parent where you're like, well, is my kid just being defiant? Or are they just lazy and they don't care? Or is it that they just can't, and so I'm just whatever, there's no other option, and just kind of, well, it is what it is slogan, mentality, let me just, but it's really devastating and heartbreaking to me that there are people in those places, and then, authoritative figures or role model type figures, or even figures who should be, to me, safe spaces and safe people for children, most especially, to feel like, okay, I can come here and I don't leave out of this place feeling less confident or ashamed of myself, or guilty or ostracized or labeled in some, really negative way. Because a lot of times I feel like kids have that feeling who, are struggling with some kind of, brain issue. Or, and so you're like, no, that's not even it. Like, you're such a brilliant kid, and you have endless potential, truly. But like you're saying, the foundation just has to be laid. And you have to realize, oh, well, this is what we need to address. And then once you start, and you practice, and then you're like, oh, wow, I can do that. I can do these things. But it is heartbreaking to see that even my dad, because my dad was like, when Titus was born, well, he even said, even when you were born, I just cried and cried and cried and asked the Lord, like, please don't make her like me. Please don't let her be like me. And then he said, it broke my heart when I started to figure out that Titus was having issues. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, well, it missed her, but now it's him. I'm like, Dad, first of all, it's not your fault.
Let me meet your dad. Bring him here. Let me talk about him.
Dad, it's not your fault.
No.
You didn't do anything wrong.
Oh, no.
Also,
and he has gifts. I know he does.
Oh, my dad is brilliant.
And that's the thing, is that, like, we don't focus on our own gifts. We think about our deficits way too much.
Right. My dad is brilliant. He's a welder. He's a skilled welder. He's an engineer. Like, he is brilliant. And he can write so well, which I didn't even realize till recently because of the things that he just hides, and you're like, what in the world, Dad? And I mean, he's such a leader in his company, and you're just like, no,
bless his heart.
No, none of this.
But it was so hard for him to fit into that mold. That's something I want to break out of. I have this sort of equation in mind that I think about, which is strong foundational skills, brain skills, plus a growth mindset equal love of learning. And if you have a love of learning, you can do anything.
That's right.
That's what I want for my kids. That's what we want for our kids.
Yes, exactly.
We don't need to be checking academic boxes. That's not what it's about. But when you can build that mindset and develop strong cognitive skills,
limitless. It's open. It's wide open. It's wide open. Yep, I see that from my dad too, because he does. He loves to learn. I love to learn. I mean, I could say, and my husband knows, like, I would be in school every day of my life. Because I love to learn. I mean, higher education, I just love learning about things. And that's true. If you love to learn, then, and you have this with this and this equation, you're like, great. I got it. I know how to do it.
And then you can do whatever direction
you want to go in.
Different things for different people. We can't all do the same thing.
Right. Yeah.
So why do we all have the same?
Exactly. I know. My dad needs to hear that too. Or be reminded, because I tell him often. Dad, come on. No, like, you're a brilliant man, and he's so brilliant.
It's interesting how we see our deficits, and we look at those more than our gifts and our gratitude.
And what we bring to the table. Like, Dad, I just, like, I can't go, into the welding shop and, make the things that you make. He made this rose that was so pristine, like from Beauty and the Beast, that kind of rose. That was so pristine, so detailed.
Out of metal?
Out of metal.
Wow.
And you're like,
wow. Do you have a picture of it?
Oh, I wish I'd not. No, but I need him. I'll get him to send it to me.
I would love to see it.
And I'll show you. Because you're like, who? That's not me. I don't have that
cool.
gifting. I don't have the gift to do that, but you do, which is amazing. It's so phenomenal. So, I don't know, just people blow my mind with the gifts and talents that they have, and then to feel like, they don't. And I know a lot of it, again, comes from a young age, and either somebody telling them that they can't, or, they're unable. Because one more quick example, this was amazing too. I know this little things like the Lord that shows, he shows me to either encourage other people or to encourage me. And in just the journey we're on with Titus. But I was at, a retreat a couple of weekends ago, and one of the speakers, he ended up sharing part of his story. And when he was actually 8 years old and he was in school, he was considered, very inattentive, hyperactive, a hopeless case. Like, he was just too much, and he was stupid. I mean, that's, that he was never going to make anything of himself. So his teacher literally told him one day in front of the class, his class, that, you know, you are an idiot and you're never going to amount to anything and you're totally inept, like you're incapable, and so you might as well not even try anymore. And he was 8 years old.
Oh my gosh.
Because, you know, he had things like ADHD and dyslexia.
How could that be?
How you think you literally are like, how can somebody do that to a child in general?
Yeah.
But I mean, much less a teacher.
Yeah.
And did it in front of his classmates.
Wow.
Horrifying. Just, I was like, oh my gosh. But then, you know, how amazing it is. Like, he ended up moving away, with his mom, and I mean, he has 2 degrees in higher ed. I mean, he's the mayor of the town that he's in. You know, like all these things. And it was just so good for me to hear that too. And I mean, he's reading, you know, he can read.
Yeah.
He's managed like the ADHD thing without medication. And, you know, I went over to him later. I was like, you don't even know how encouraging that was for me. And part of his as he was talking about his story, he was like, you know, the one person that was kind of my beacon and all of that was my mom, because she never gave up on me, and she always encouraged me and told me that I can do it. I can persevere, and even in the obstacles and the hurdles and things, that, you know, that there's a way. There is a way to work through it. And he said, I'm so grateful that she was that, you know, the person who never made me feel lesser than, or like I wasn't, you know, inept and unable to do something. But I told him too, I even shared it with him, I was like, it's so funny too, because my son will either say, I want to be mayor one day, or I want to be president, and he does. Titus is serious about it. He wants to be, he's like, when I'm mayor, or when I'm president, I'm like, oh gosh, I don't know that I want you to be president.
It's amazing what we can be capable of, though, when we don't limit ourselves. And it's very easy to get into a mindset of limiting yourself. You're right, it's the people around you, and you and Aaron both are so encouraging for him. And, you know,
I mean, y'all are too. That's why we love this place also, because y'all are so encouraging to Titus. And it's not like he comes here and then he leaves feeling defeated or, you know, incapable, or he's questioning like his ability in any way. He leaves here feeling so confident, like he's crushed something. I mean, every day he leaves out of here and he's like, he's a little dramatic. He's like, I got 1,000 points today. I'm like, all right. You know, and he's just like, I did awesome. I'm like, yes, I know that you did. I know you did an amazing job, and I'm so proud of how hard you're working.
Oh, wow.
You know, so he does. He leaves out of here with that kind of bravado, you know, it's like hilarious. But I'm so glad that that's how he comes out of, you know, the intensive training from that day, instead of being like, oh, you know, that was awful, or I did terrible, or I don't want to go back, or I can't do this. It's not that. That's not the attitude that he leaves here with. So I don't know, even that's like a further confirmation for us that like this was the perfect fit. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. And just because it's not, you know, an easy road, and I think about that when people ask about medication, I'm like, medication is easy. Like you get, and you do it every whatever. But I was like, this is the long, hard, more effective road.
Yes, more effective. I mean, and it doesn't have adverse effects.
Side effects.
Yeah. Which and in long, I mean, not just short-term adverse side effects, but long-term. Yeah,
that's heartbreaking, because too, you know, I hear lots of times of families who have chosen the medication route, which I understand. A lot of times they're like, I just felt like I have no other choice because I didn't know anything else, you know. And, you know, and then you'll hear like they're angry or, you know, or they don't like taking it. It changes their personality. It tampers them down, or they lose a bunch of weight because they're not hungry, you know, and those kinds of things. And then sometimes it's like, you know, is that worth it to be able to sit like this in a classroom?
Exactly.
Because even then it's not addressing the issues with working memory.
Right.
Or
because ultimately what I've learned even in studying this is it creates less memory retention and brain fog, and it's been known to show like schizophrenic or bipolar, you know, like symptoms, and even depression. Like I've read accounts of where even kids and, you know, young adults who have committed suicide because of, you know, taking this medication, and it's been such a depressant or a creating like schizophrenia or something that they can't mentally, they're like, this is, I can't deal with this anymore. You know, and then they commit suicide and you're like, oh my.
And I mean, that's not the case for everyone, but it happens.
But it happens. And that to me is not, that's like Russian roulette. You're like, okay, let's just spin the wheel and see if it, you know, which you hate it. You hate to say it that way, but it's like, that is so not worth it. It is so not worth it. And we don't even I think we don't even yet know fully the side effects of medication for kids who are starting to take it, you know, like around Titus's age or even a little bit younger. Because what effect does that have on their hormones and on their, not just their mental growth, but like their physical growth? How does that affect them as they get older?
Their body,
and you're like, we don't know. We don't know.
Well, you know, I met a mom one time, and by the time I sat down with her, she was on, I think, 80 milligrams of Adderall. Like, she told me this. She was, I mean, we were sitting and like a noise would happen and she would jerk. And I mean, she was just, and she was like, I refuse to put my child on medication because there is no end game. There is no, and like, I have long-term side effects. I require it. Like, she knew that.
Right. She knows. Yeah.
And it was so sad to watch her, but then also see her go, this is not the solution for my kid.
Exactly, and realizing, because I mean, and you know, the case of that too, where it's like, oh, well, you know, they give you this dosage, and then you're like, oh, okay, well, that kind of helped it in the beginning, but then your
now my body's used to
reappear.
It.
You know, and they're like, oh, actually, you just needed a higher dose. So they give you a higher dose, and then the same thing, and you're like, wait a second. All the while, they're never actually telling you, this is only masking it for a moment. This actually, obviously, is not helping anything. We just need to up your dose. And you're like, wait a second. And then all the while, you get, you know, where they're, you know, like...
She was behaving like an addict, you know? And she knew that, and and it was literally prescribed to her medication.
And that's so sad. And then the effects and all the difficulties of what happens when you're coming off, because it's an amphetamine. When you're trying to come off of that, and you think about that and that's where I was really at with it too, with whether or not we would do that for Titus, because it's not like one of those things where you can say, oh, well, I'll just give it to him now and then take him off of it later. Because, and to me, in that thinking, you're like, okay, logically, how does that make sense to you? Because what you're trying to say to me right now is that I'm going to give my child this medication while he's young, and then magically I'm going to think that when he's even a teenager, he's not going to need it anymore because it's taking care of it. You're like, how does that...
Right.
Like the thinking in that, I don't understand.
You're right. And the idea that medication heals versus covers up symptoms that are purposeful.
Right.
You know, like you get a headache when your body is going, something is wrong.
Detox, or you're dehydrated.
And so when we just take a headache medicine, then it's like, well, now I don't know what my body, I can't even listen to my body. Or like a fever, you know, you've got to let that fever go. And I mean, I've noticed I try to avoid medication if I can, you know, but if it's like coming up to where I'm like feeling like, which I do like homeopathic stuff anyway, but if it's like flu-like symptoms or coughing, I'm like, I know if I take a cough medicine, which would relieve me right now, it will last longer.
It's like,
so it's like I need to just let it go out, and it'll be out in 24 hours.
That's right.
Versus if I just like tamper down the symptoms, then I'm elongating them. You know, you see that,
and it's not addressing anything.
It makes, again, this is logic and reasoning that I feel like we're more and more not having, because someone is saying something. It's like, oh, they're an authority, that I should listen to them. But we have our own logic and reasoning.
That's right.
Our own God-given intuition
to be like,
to listen to.
And be like,
if we do.
Weird.
You know? I think I love having this conversation with you, because there's lots of people, I think, that are sort of, you know, waking up to this. And this is probably not